Jake Martinez stood in his small lab aboard Harmony Point Station, looking through his microscope at a sample of alien plant cells. The work was routine but important. As a xenobiologist, he spent most of his days studying how different species interacted with their environments. It was quiet work, the kind he enjoyed. The door to the lab slid open with a soft hiss. Jake looked up and smiled. His wife Kara walked in, her red scales catching the light from the ceiling panels. She stood 7 feet tall, her powerful frame filling the doorway, her golden eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him straighten up immediately. "Jake," she said, her voice deeper than any human woman's. "We need to talk." He could hear something unusual in her tone. Kara was Draknari, a species known across the galaxy for their strength and their pride. They did not show fear easily, but right now, Jake could see concern in the way she held herself, in the slight tension around her eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting down his work. "Did something happen at your medical checkup?" Kara crossed the room in 3 long strides. She sat down on the reinforced chair they had installed for her, the one designed to hold her weight. For a moment, she just looked at him, as if trying to find the right words. "The scanner found something," she said finally. "Something that should not be possible." Jake felt his heart start to beat faster. They had been married for 2 years now, ever since they met during a diplomatic conference on the station. Their relationship had been unusual from the start. Humans and Draknari rarely formed romantic bonds. The size difference alone made things complicated. But they had fallen in love, despite the challenges, despite the strange looks and the whispered comments. "What did it find?" Jake asked. Kara took a breath, her chest plates rising and falling. "I am carrying eggs." Jake blinked. He knew about Draknari reproduction. They were an all-female species that could reproduce with compatible partners from other species. The eggs were always carried by the Draknari female, always developed according to Draknari biology. It was not common, but it happened. "That's wonderful," he started to say. But Kara held up one clawed hand. "You do not understand," she said. "The eggs contain your genetic material. Both of ours. Together. The scanner says they are developing in a way that has never been recorded before." The words took a moment to sink in. Jake's mind raced through everything he knew about cross-species reproduction. Humans and Draknari were not supposed to be compatible. Their biology was too different. The proteins, the cellular structure, the very chemistry of their bodies should not work together. "That's impossible," he said quietly. "I know," Kara replied. "But the scanner does not lie. Doctor, Hoffman wants to see us both immediately." They walked through the corridors of Harmony Point together. The station was home to over 50,000 beings from dozens of different species. Jake had always loved the diversity here, the way different cultures mixed and worked together. But right now, he barely noticed the other residents. His mind was spinning with questions. Dr. Lisa Hoffman was waiting for them in the medical bay. She was a human woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her face was serious as they entered her office. "Sit down, please," she said, gesturing to the chairs. "I've reviewed Kara's scans 3 times. I've had the computer check for errors. The results are consistent." She brought up a holographic display above her desk. Jake saw the image of 3 eggs, glowing softly with internal heat. Around each egg, streams of data flowed in columns of text and numbers. "These eggs contain genetic material from both of you, Doctor," Hoffman said, pointing at the display. "The DNA has merged in a way I have never seen before. Normally, when Draknari reproduce with other species, the Draknari genetics dominate. The offspring are Draknari with some minor traits from the other parent. But this..." She paused, shaking her head. "This is true genetic fusion. The cells are developing with characteristics from both species in equal measure." "How is this possible?" Jake asked. "Humans and Draknari should not be biologically compatible." "I don't know, Doctor," Hoffman admitted. "I'm going to need to run more tests. With your permission, I'd like to consult with some specialists in cross-species biology. This could be a major scientific discovery." Kara's hand found Jake's, her scaled fingers wrapping around his smaller ones. "What does this mean for the eggs?" she asked. "Are they healthy? Will they survive?" "Right now, they appear to be developing normally, Doctor," Hoffman said. "But I have no reference point for what normal means in this case. We're in completely uncharted territory." The door to the office opened without warning. A tall Draknari female entered, her scales a deep purple color. She wore the formal robes of a diplomat. Marked with symbols of rank, Jake recognized her immediately. Ambassador Zara was the Draknari representative to the Galactic Council, one of the most powerful figures on the station. "Forgive my intrusion," Zara said, though her tone suggested she was not really asking for permission. "I have heard the news. The medical computers automatically flag unusual biological readings to security and diplomatic channels. This matter concerns not just you two, but potentially all of our people." Kara stood up, drawing herself to her full height. Even among Draknari, she was tall and strong. "This is a private family matter, Ambassador." "It was private," Zara said. "But the moment the medical scanners recorded those results, it became something larger. The Draknari High Council will want to know about this. So will the Galactic Council. Interspecies reproduction with humans was thought to be impossible. If it has happened, we need to understand why and how." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had hoped they could keep this quiet, at least until they understood what was happening. But he should have known better. In a place like Harmony Point, secrets did not stay secret for long. "I need time to study this before we make any announcements," Dr. Hoffman said firmly. "These are my patients, and I will not have them turned into a medical spectacle." Zara's expression softened slightly. "I understand your concern, Doctor, but you must understand mine. This could change everything we thought we knew about human biology. The implications are enormous." As they talked, Jake looked at Kara. She met his eyes, and he saw the same worry he felt reflected in her gaze. They had wanted to start a family someday, but they had never imagined it would happen like this. They had never imagined it would be possible at all. "We need answers," Jake said quietly. "Whatever this is, whatever it means, we need to understand it. Not just for the science, but for our children." The word hung in the air. Children. They were going to be parents. The thought filled Jake with equal parts joy and terror. How would they raise children who were half human, half Draknari? What kind of world would those children face? Dr. Hoffman nodded. "I'll start working on a comprehensive testing protocol. We'll figure this out together." As they left the medical bay, Jake and Kara walked in silence for a while. Finally, they reached the observation deck, a large room with windows that looked out at the stars. They stood together, watching the distant lights of passing ships. "Are you afraid?" Kara asked. Jake thought about the question. He was afraid, yes, but he was also excited, hopeful, and deeply curious. This was the unknown, the frontier that every scientist dreamed of exploring, and it was happening to them, in the most personal way possible. "Yes," he said honestly, "but we'll face it together. Whatever comes next, we'll handle it." Kara's hand squeezed his gently. Despite her strength, despite her claws that could tear through metal, she was always careful with him. That small gesture of trust and love meant everything. "Together," she agreed. Neither of them could have known, in that moment, just how much their lives were about to change. The news of the impossible pregnancy would spread across the station within hours. Within days, it would reach every corner of the galaxy. Their quiet life was ending, and something much larger was beginning. The news spread faster than Jake had expected. Within 24 hours, every major news service in the galaxy was running stories about the impossible pregnancy. Scientists from a dozen different species requested access to the research data. Some called it a miracle, others called it dangerous. Jake barely slept that first night. He lay in bed next to Kara, listening to her breathing, thinking about the eggs growing inside her. When dawn came to their section of the station, he got up quietly and went straight to his lab. If no one else could explain what was happening, he would find the answers himself. He pulled up every research paper he could find on cross-species reproduction. The data filled his screens in endless columns. Most species in the galaxy could not reproduce together at all. Those that could usually produced offspring with traits from only one parent species. True genetic mixing was incredibly rare. Commander Paul Wright found him there 6 hours later, surrounded by empty coffee cups and data displays. Paul was his closest friend on the station, a military officer who had helped Jake and Kara navigate the complicated process of getting married across species lines. "You look terrible," Paul said, setting down a fresh cup of coffee. "Have you eaten anything?" "Not hungry," Jake muttered, his eyes still on the screen. "Paul, look at this. I've been going through the genetic data from the scans, the way our DNA combined. It's like nothing I've ever seen. It's not just mixing, it's like our genetic material is talking to each other, coordinating." Paul looked at the screen, though Jake knew his friend could not make sense of the technical details. "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet," Jake admitted. "But it's beautiful, terrifying, but beautiful." Dr. Hoffman called them both to the medical bay that afternoon. When they arrived, they found her with another doctor, a Korean man with kind eyes and an air of intense focus. He stood up as they entered. "This is Dr. Henry Park," Dr. Hoffman said. "He's one of the leading experts in cross-species biology in this sector. I asked him to review our findings." "Deeding." Dr. Park shook hands with Jake, then nodded respectfully to Kara. "I have spent the last 12 hours studying your case," he said. "What I have found is remarkable. May I show you?" He brought up a new display, this one showing a comparison between human DNA and Draknari DNA. Most species in the galaxy have what we call rigid genetic structures. Their DNA follows very specific patterns. It's efficient, but it's not flexible. Humans are different. Jake leaned forward. "Different how?" "We're me. Human DNA has an unusual quality," Dr. Park explained. "Your genetic code contains what we call adaptive sequences. They're sections of DNA that can respond to environmental pressures and change over time. Most species view this as primitive, a leftover from your evolutionary history. But I believe it's something much more important." He zoomed in on a section of the genetic display. When human DNA encounters Draknari reproductive biology, these adaptive sequences activate. They read the Draknari genetic information like a language and respond to it. Instead of rejecting the foreign DNA or being overwhelmed by it, human genetics adapt and merge with it. It's unprecedented. Kara shifted in her seat. "So my body did not do this alone. His genetic material changed to work with mine?" "Exactly," Dr. Park said. "In a way, human DNA is like a universal translator for genetics. It can bridge gaps between species that should not be able to reproduce together." Jake felt his mind racing. This means humans could potentially reproduce with any compatible species in the galaxy. "In theory, yes," Dr. Park said carefully. "Though compatibility would depend on many factors. But the implications are enormous. Humans have been in the galactic community for less than a century. Most species still view you as newcomers, physically weak and biologically unremarkable. This discovery changes everything." Dr. Hoffman crossed her arms. "It also makes Jake and Kara targets. There are groups out there who will not want this information to spread." As if to prove her point, the station's communication system chimed. Ambassador Zara's face appeared on the screen. "Dr. Hoffman, we have a situation. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They want to discuss the implications of this pregnancy. Both Jake and Kara are requested to attend." Jake looked at Kara. She met his eyes and nodded. They had known this was coming. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seats arranged in tiers. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated areas, talking in low voices as Jake and Kara entered. The room fell silent as they walked to the center floor. A holographic figure appeared above them. It was the council speaker, a being made of crystalline structures that refracted light in complex patterns. Its voice echoed through the chamber. We are here to discuss the matter of human Draknari reproduction. This development raises many questions about human biology and its place in our community. Ambassador Zara stood from her seat. The Draknari people celebrate this discovery. It proves that cooperation between species can create something new and wonderful. We should embrace this as a symbol of galactic unity. From another section, a different voice spoke up. It belonged to Ambassador Thorn, a tall being with pale blue skin and cold eyes. He represented the Velkari Union, a conservative alliance of species that valued genetic purity. This is not unity. This is contamination. Human genetic material is invasive, capable of overriding the natural order. If humans can reproduce with Draknari, what other species might be affected? This threatens the genetic integrity of the entire galaxy. Angry voices rose from multiple sections. Some agreed with Thorn, others shouted him down. Jake felt Kara's hand on his shoulder, steadying him. The speaker's light flashed brightly, calling for silence. The human will speak. Jake swallowed hard. He had never been comfortable with public speaking, but this was too important to stay silent. I'm just a scientist, he began. I study plants and microbes. I never expected to be standing here, talking about my family in front of the entire Galactic Council. But here I am. He took a breath. My wife and I love each other. We got married knowing that we came from different worlds, different species. We accepted that we probably would never have children together, but somehow, against all odds, we're going to be parents. That's not contamination. That's not a threat. That's life finding a way. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as he could. Humans have always been adaptable. We came from a harsh world, and we survived by learning to change, to grow, to work together. Maybe our genetics reflect that. Maybe our DNA is flexible because we are flexible. That's not something to fear. It's something that could help bring this galaxy closer together. And what if other species do not want to be closer to humans? Thorn demanded. What if we prefer our own genetic lines pure and uncontaminated? Then don't marry humans, Jake said simply. No one is forcing anyone to do anything. But don't tell me and my wife that our love is wrong, or that our children shouldn't exist. Every species in this chamber came from something unexpected. Evolution doesn't ask permission. Life doesn't follow rules. It just happens. The chamber erupted in discussion again. Jake stood there, his heart pounding, while representatives argued and debated. Finally, after what felt like hours, the speaker called for order again. The council will review this matter further, the speaker announced. In the meantime, Jake Martinez and Kara are free to proceed with their pregnancy. No restrictions will be placed on them at this time. However, all medical data must be shared with the Council's Science Division. This session is concluded. As they left the chamber, Jake felt exhausted. Kara walked beside him, her face unreadable. When they finally reached a quiet corridor, she stopped and looked down at him. You spoke well, she said. I was terrified, Jake admitted. I know, Kara said. But you did it anyway. That is courage. They returned to their quarters to find a message waiting. It was from Elder Matriarch Vera, the leader of the Draknari homeworld. Her image appeared on their screen. Ancient and powerful, Kara, daughter of my people, the matriarch said. I have heard of your condition. The High Council wishes you to return to the homeworld for proper examination. This matter is too important to be left to station medical facilities. Kara's jaw tightened. I will not leave Jake. My place is here, with my husband. The matriarch's eyes narrowed. You carry eggs that contain mixed genetics. The health of those eggs is paramount. You will do what is necessary for their survival. I will, Kara said firmly. Here, with the doctors I trust, and the partner who shares responsibility for these children. The message ended. Jake could see the tension in Kara's shoulders. She was defying the most powerful figure in her society. For him, for their family, thank you, he said quietly. Kara looked down at him, and her expression softened. We are in this together. You said that yourself. Over the next few weeks, Dr. Park and Dr. Hoffman worked closely with Jake, studying every aspect of the developing eggs. They discovered that the embryos inside were developing organs and systems that blended human and Draknari characteristics, hearts that beat with human rhythm but used Draknari blood chemistry, bones that would be lighter than Draknari but stronger than human, brains that showed connections unlike either species. It was miraculous and frightening at the same time. Jake spent hours in the lab, documenting everything, trying to understand what kind of beings his children would become. Late one night, as he was working, his computer chimed with an alert. Someone was trying to access his research files through the station network. The attempt was clumsy, easily blocked, but it worried him. Someone wanted this information badly enough to risk hacking a secure system. He reported it to station security immediately. Chief Nina Carter, a no-nonsense woman with military precision, promised to investigate. But the incident left Jake uneasy. Dr. Hoffman had been right. They were targets now, whether they wanted to be or not. The attempted hack was only the beginning. 2 days later, security cameras caught someone trying to break into the medical bay's storage room, where Kara's prenatal records were kept. The intruder was caught before they could access anything, but the message was clear. Someone wanted information about the eggs, and they were willing to break laws to get it. Chief Nina Carter stood in Jake and Kara's quarters, her face serious. She was a compact woman with short brown hair and eyes that missed nothing. I'm assigning a protection detail to both of you, she said. 2 officers at all times. Rotating shifts. I've also upgraded the security on your quarters and your workspaces. Jake felt uncomfortable with the idea. Is that really necessary? We're on a secure station. Harmony Point has 50,000 residents from dozens of different species, Nina replied. I can control access to the station, but I can't control what people think or what they might do once they're here. You've become famous, whether you wanted to or not. That makes you vulnerable, Kara nodded slowly. We accept your protection, Chief Carter. Thank you. That afternoon, Jake met their new security detail. Sergeant Danny Cole was a Marine in his 30s with an easy smile and alert eyes. His partner, Officer Lin Chen, was quieter but equally professional. Danny shook Jake's hand firmly. Don't worry, Dr. Martinez, he said. We'll stay out of your way as much as possible. You won't even know we're here most of the time. Jake tried to return to his normal routine, but it was impossible. Everywhere he went, people stared. Some approached him with congratulations. Others looked at him with suspicion or disgust. The station's social areas buzzed with constant conversation about the pregnancy. Some called it a miracle. Others called it an abomination. The real trouble started 3 weeks after the council session. A group calling themselves the Consortium of Genetic Purity released a public statement. Their leader, a Velkari named Dren, appeared on every major news channel. The human contamination of Draknari genetics is just the beginning, Dren said, his pale face filled with anger. If we allow this to continue, human DNA will spread throughout the galaxy like a plague. They are a young species with no understanding of the consequences of their actions. We must stop this now, before it's too late. The statement sparked protests on multiple worlds. On some planets, demonstrations supported interspecies families. On others, angry crowds demanded restrictions on human immigration and interaction. The Galactic Council was forced to convene emergency sessions almost daily. Ambassador Zara visited Jake and Kara personally to warn them. The consortium has supporters in many places, including here on Harmony Point. You must be extremely careful. They view your children as symbols of everything they fear. We're just trying to live our lives, Jake said, frustrated. We didn't ask for any of this attention. I know, Zara said gently. But sometimes, history chooses us rather than the other way around. Your family has become important to many people. To the Draknari people, you represent hope and progress. To those who fear change, you represent everything they want to stop. Paul visited them that evening, bringing food from their favorite restaurant on the station. As they ate, he told them about the increased military presence around key areas of Harmony Point. "Command is taking the threats seriously," he said. "We've identified several consortium members who were trying to book passage to the station. They've been denied access, but we can't catch everyone." Kara had been quieter than usual during the meal. Now she looked at Paul and asked, "Do you think they would try to hurt us? Truly hurt us?" Paul met her eyes honestly. "Some of them might. Extremists are capable of terrible things when they believe they're protecting something important. That's why we're being so careful." Into Z. As the weeks passed, the pregnancy progressed. Kara began to show physical signs. Her scaled abdomen swelled slightly, and she moved with a new carefulness. Dr. Hoffman monitored her daily, watching for any complications. The eggs were growing well, but they were developing faster than normal Dreknari eggs. No one knew if that was good or bad. Jake threw himself into his research, partly out of scientific curiosity and partly to distract himself from the constant stress. Dr. Park worked with him, and together, they made breakthrough after breakthrough. Human genetic adaptability was even more remarkable than they had first thought. The implications went far beyond reproduction. Human DNA might be able to help treat genetic diseases in other species, Dr. Park said one day, his eyes bright with excitement. "If we can understand how it adapts and integrates, we might be able to use it therapeutically. This could revolutionize medicine across the galaxy." But every positive discovery seemed to bring more negative attention. The consortium's rhetoric grew more heated. Dren gave speeches calling for humans to be quarantined from the rest of the galaxy. Some fringe groups went further, suggesting that humanity should be removed from the Galactic Council entirely. The stress was taking a toll on Kara. Despite her Draknari strength and pride, Jake could see the worry in her eyes. She had trouble sleeping. She ate less than she should. One night, he found her standing by the window in their quarters, looking out at the stars. "Tell me what you're thinking," he said softly. Kara was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "I am afraid, Jake. Not for myself, but for them." She placed a hand on her swollen abdomen. "What kind of world will they be born into? Will they be accepted? Or will they spend their whole lives being seen as mistakes, as things that should not exist?" Jake moved to stand beside her. He put his arm around her waist, or as far around as he could reach. "They'll be strong," he said, "like their mother. And they'll be smart and adaptable, like both of us. Whatever challenges they face, they'll handle them, and they'll never doubt that they were wanted and loved." Kara leaned down and rested her head against his. "You always know what to say." "That's because I married someone who makes me want to be better than I am," Jake replied. The Galactic Council finally reached a decision about interspecies reproduction. In a historic vote, they decided that all species had the right to form families with willing partners from other species, regardless of biological compatibility. No restrictions would be placed on reproduction or genetic mixing. The vote was close, passing by only a narrow margin. But it was a victory. Ambassador Zara came to their quarters with the news personally. "This is a major step forward," she said, clearly pleased. "Your family has helped change the galaxy's perspective on what is possible and what is acceptable." But not everyone accepted the decision. The consortium released another statement, this one darker in tone. "The Council has failed in its duty to protect the genetic heritage of its member species," Dren said. "If they will not act, then concerned citizens must take matters into their own hands." Chief Carter immediately increased security throughout the station. Danny and Lynn stayed closer to Jake and Kara at all times. Additional guards were posted outside the medical bay and their quarters. The atmosphere on Harmony Point grew tense. Jake noticed that fewer people approached them in public now. Some species avoided them entirely, while others offered quiet words of support when they thought no one else was watching. The station felt divided, split between those who welcomed change and those who feared it. Dr. Hoffman called them in for a routine checkup one morning. As she performed the scan, her expression grew concerned. "The eggs are developing faster than I expected," she said. "At this rate, Kara will lay them in about 3 months, instead of the normal 6-month Draknari gestation period." "Is that dangerous?" Kara asked. "I don't know," Dr. Hoffman admitted. "It's outside my experience. Dr. Park thinks it might be related to human genetics. Human pregnancies are shorter than Draknari ones. The eggs might be adapting to both timelines." Over the next few weeks, they noticed other changes. Kara's body temperature increased slightly. Her scales took on a brighter sheen. She became more protective, more alert to potential threats around them. Dr. Park explained that these were normal Draknari maternal instincts, intensified by the unusual nature of the pregnancy. One evening, as Jake was working late in his lab, an alarm sounded. It was the medical bay alert. He ran through the corridors, his heart pounding, with Danny right behind him. When they reached the medical bay, they found Nina and her security team surrounding the entrance. "Someone tried to access the embryo monitoring system remotely," Nina explained. "They were trying to overload it, possibly to harm the eggs through the monitoring equipment." Jake felt cold fear wash over him. "Did they succeed?" "No," Nina said. "Our systems caught it in time. But this was sophisticated. Whoever did this had technical knowledge and resources. This wasn't some amateur acting alone." Dr. Hoffman came out of the medical bay, her face pale. "I've disconnected all remote access to the monitoring equipment. From now on, everything will be controlled manually. It's less efficient, but safer." Paul arrived minutes later, still in his uniform from duty. He pulled Jake aside. "Command thinks this was a coordinated attempt. There were similar attacks on 3 other stations at the same time. The consortium is escalating. What can we do?" Jake asked. "Stay alert. Trust your security team. And don't go anywhere without protection," Paul said seriously. "I know you hate the restrictions, but they're necessary now." That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He lay awake, listening to Kara's breathing, thinking about the eggs growing inside her. 3 children who hadn't asked to be born into a galaxy full of conflict and fear. 3 children who would face challenges simply for existing, but they would also face opportunity, he reminded himself. They would be proof that different species could create something beautiful together. They would be bridges between worlds, living symbols of what cooperation could achieve. He just had to make sure they survived long enough to have that chance. 3 months into the pregnancy, everything went wrong at once. It started in the middle of the night. Jake woke to Kara's sharp gasp of pain. In the darkness of their quarters, he could see her clutching her abdomen, her whole body tense. The scales along her chest were glowing faintly with internal heat, brighter than normal. "Something's wrong," she said through gritted teeth. "The eggs, they're moving." Jake hit the emergency call button next to their bed. Within seconds, Danny burst through the door, weapon drawn. When he saw Kara doubled over in pain, he immediately spoke into his communicator. "Medical emergency. Martinez quarters. Get Dr. Hoffman here now." The next few minutes were chaos. Dr. Hoffman arrived with a medical team and scanning equipment. They worked quickly while Jake held Kara's hand, trying to stay calm, even though his heart was racing. The scanner's readings made Dr. Hoffman's face go pale. "The eggs are trying to emerge early," she said. "They're putting pressure on her internal organs. We need to get her to surgery immediately." They moved Kara onto a medical transport bed. Jake walked beside her as they rushed through the corridors toward the medical bay. Kara's breathing was harsh and painful. Her golden eyes found his, and he could see fear there. Real fear. "Don't leave me," she said. "Never," Jake promised. When they reached the medical bay, Dr. Park was already there, preparing the surgical suite. But as they were moving Kara inside, Chief Carter came running down the corridor. Her face grim. "We have a situation," she said. "Multiple unauthorized transports just docked at the station. We're reading at least 20 armed individuals moving through the lower sections. I think it's the consortium. Paul arrived right behind her, already in combat gear. They're heading this way. They must have planned this, waiting for Kara to be vulnerable. We need to evacuate the medical bay. We can't move her, Dr. Hoffman said firmly. Moving her now could kill her and the eggs. We need to operate here, now. Paul made a quick decision. Then we defend this position. Danny, get your team in formation around the medical bay. Nina, lock down all access corridors. I'll coordinate with station security to intercept them before they get here. The medical bay transformed into a fortress. Security personnel took up positions at every entrance. Danny personally checked each access point, making sure the doors were sealed. Through the chaos, Jake stayed with Kara as the medical team prepared her for surgery. Dr. Hoffman looked at him seriously. Jake, I need to be honest with you. We've never done this procedure before. We don't know exactly what we're going to find when we start. The eggs are too large to pass naturally, and her body is rejecting them because of their hybrid nature. We're going into unknown territory. Do whatever you have to do, Jake said. Just save them, all of them. He kissed Kara's forehead before they took her into surgery. She tried to smile at him, but another wave of pain hit her, and she gasped instead. Then the doors closed, and he was left outside with Danny and the security team. The waiting was terrible. Jake paced the corridor, unable to sit still. Through the walls, he could hear the sounds of fighting in the distance. Weapons fire, shouting. Alarms blaring. The consortium was making their move. Paul's voice came through the communication system. They're trying to force their way through Section 7. We're holding them. But they're well armed and determined. Nina, I need more support at the junction near the medical bay. Chief Carter moved half her team to reinforce Paul's position. That left fewer guards at the medical bay itself. Danny noticed Jake watching and gave him a reassuring nod. Don't worry, Doc. They'd have to go through me first. Inside the surgical suite, Dr. Hoffman and Dr. Park worked with intense focus. The procedure was unlike anything either of them had ever attempted. Kara's internal structure was standard Draknari. But the eggs were something else entirely. They were larger than normal Draknari eggs, with shells that had a strange crystalline quality. The hybrid nature made them fragile and strong at the same time. Carefully, Dr. Park said, as they began to extract the first egg. The shell structure is different. If we apply too much pressure, it could crack. Dr. Hoffman's hands were steady despite the chaos outside. She had been a trauma surgeon before becoming a station medical officer. She had worked in war zones, in disaster areas. She knew how to focus when everything around her was falling apart. The first egg emerged successfully. They placed it immediately into a specially prepared incubation chamber that combined human and Draknari medical technology. The egg glowed softly, its surface reflecting rainbow patterns in the surgical lights. Outside, the battle was getting closer. Paul's voice came through again, strained now. They've broken through the first checkpoint, falling back to defensive position 2. Nina, they have explosives. They're trying to breach the medical bay doors. Danny moved to the main entrance, his weapon ready. 2 other security officers joined him. Through the reinforced windows, Jake could see shapes moving in the corridor beyond. The consortium attackers wore masks and carried weapons that gleamed with deadly purpose. An explosion rocked the corridor. The blast door buckled but held. Danny opened fire through a gun port in the door, driving the attackers back temporarily. But Jake could see more coming, too many to hold off for long. Inside the surgical suite, they were extracting the second egg when Kara's vital signs started dropping. Her body was going into shock from the trauma and the stress. Dr. Hoffman called for emergency medications while Dr. Park continued working. We need to get all 3 eggs out now, Dr. Park said. Her body can't take much more of this. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in a red glow. Jake heard Danny shouting orders, coordinating with his team. The sound of weapons fire was constant now. Then he heard something that made his blood run cold. A voice, amplified and cold, came from beyond the damaged door. "Give us the eggs, or we will take them by force. You have 1 minute to comply." Danny looked at Jake, then at the door, then back at Jake. "Get behind me, Doc. If they get through, you run. You understand? You get to the emergency transport bay, and you get out of here." "I'm not leaving my wife," Jake said. "Your wife would want you alive," Danny replied. "And someone needs to survive to take care of those kids." Before Jake could respond, the voice outside spoke again. "Time's up." The explosion that followed was massive. It blew the door completely off its frame. Smoke filled the corridor. Through it, Jake could see figures rushing forward, weapons raised. Danny and his team opened fire. The attackers fired back. In the chaos, Jake saw Danny take a hit to his shoulder. The sergeant stumbled but stayed on his feet. Still firing. Still fighting. Then another sound cut through the battle. A roar, deep and primal, that made everyone freeze for a split second. Through the smoke, something massive moved. Ambassador Zara stepped into the corridor. And she was not alone. A dozen Draknari warriors in full combat armor flanked her, their weapons ready. "You dare attack our people?" Zara's voice was thunder. "You dare threaten our young?" The consortium attackers tried to fight, but Draknari warriors were bred for combat. In less than a minute, the battle was over. The attackers who survived were being restrained. The ones who didn't were being dragged away. Paul arrived with reinforcements, securing the area. Through it all, the medical team kept working. Dr. Hoffman extracted the second egg successfully. Then the third. All three were placed in incubation chambers, monitored constantly. Kara's vital signs were weak but stable. Finally, after hours that felt like days, the surgical suite doors opened. Dr. Hoffman came out, pulling off her surgical mask. She looked exhausted, but victorious. "They're alive," she said. "All of them. Kara needs rest and recovery, but she's going to be okay. The eggs are stable in their chambers." Jake felt his legs give out. He sat down hard on the floor, shaking. Paul helped him up, gripping his shoulder firmly. "It's over, Jake. You made it." But even as relief washed over him, Jake looked at the damaged corridor, at the scorch marks from weapons fire, at the blood on the floor where Danny had been hit. This victory had come at a cost. Danny was being treated by medics nearby. Despite his injury, he grinned when he saw Jake looking at him. "Told you I'd keep you safe, Doc." Jake went to him, not knowing what to say. Finally, he just said, "Thank you." "Just doing my job," Danny replied. "Besides, someone's got to make sure those kids have a father to grow up with." Ambassador Zara approached, her armor still smoking slightly from the battle. "We received word of the attack just in time," she said. "I brought warriors from our embassy. I will not apologize for the violence. Those who threaten children, any children, deserve no mercy." Chief Carter was coordinating the cleanup and the investigation. Early reports suggested the attack had been planned for weeks, timed to coincide with Kara's medical emergency. The consortium had somehow gotten intelligence about the pregnancy's progression. "We'll need to increase security even more," Nina said. "This wasn't their only cell. There will be others." Jake was allowed to see Kara in recovery. She lay on a specialized bed, her scales dulled from exhaustion, but her eyes alert. When she saw him, she tried to sit up. "The eggs," she said immediately. "Safe," Jake told her. "All three. They're in incubation chambers. Dr. Hoffman says they're doing well." Kara's whole body relaxed. She reached out and Jake took her hand. "I heard the fighting," she said. "I heard the explosions. I thought they would reach you." "Ambassador Zara and her warriors came just in time," Jake said. Danny and his team held them off until reinforcements arrived. "We're safe now." But even as he said it, Jake knew the danger wasn't over. The consortium had failed today, but they wouldn't give up. As long as the eggs existed, as long as his children represented everything the extremists feared, his family would be in danger. Still, Looking at Kara, seeing the relief and love in her eyes, Jake felt something stronger than fear. He felt determination. They had survived this crisis. They would survive whatever came next. Their children deserved that much from them. The 3 weeks following the attack were tense but peaceful. The eggs remained in their incubation chambers under constant guard. Kara recovered slowly, her Draknari constitution helping her heal from the traumatic surgery. Jake barely left the medical bay, splitting his time between watching over his wife and watching over the eggs. The attack had shocked the galaxy. Images of the battle at Harmony Point spread across every news network. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Species that had been neutral or even opposed to interspecies families now spoke out in support. The consortium's violent actions had backfired, turning them from a political movement into recognized terrorists. The Galactic Council moved swiftly. They passed new laws protecting interspecies families and their children. The consortium's assets were frozen. Their leaders, including Dren, were arrested. The organization was officially disbanded, though everyone knew some members would remain in hiding. Ambassador Zara visited Jake and Kara often during those weeks. She had become more than a political ally. She was a friend, one who had risked her life to save theirs. One afternoon, she sat with them in the medical bay, watching the eggs through the incubation chamber windows. "They are beautiful," she said. "I have seen many Draknari eggs in my life, but these are different. Special." The eggs had continued to develop in the chambers. Their shells showed patterns that shifted and changed, sometimes looking like Draknari scale patterns, sometimes showing colors and textures that were purely human-influenced. Dr. Park monitored them constantly, documenting every change. "They're ahead of schedule again," he told Jake one morning. "Based on their development rate, I think they'll hatch within the week." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. Within a week, he would be a father. The reality of it hit him all over again. He found Kara in their quarters, where she was finally allowed to spend most of her time now that she had recovered enough. "Dr. Park says soon," he told her. Kara looked up from the Draknari text she was reading. It was a book about raising hatchlings, one of the few resources available since no one had ever raised human Draknari children before. "I know," she said. "I can feel it somehow. A mother's instinct." Perhaps. That evening, Paul visited with Danny, who had recovered from his shoulder wound. They brought gifts, traditional items from both human and Draknari cultures. A soft blanket from Earth, a heating stone from the Draknari homeworld, small toys and books in multiple languages. "We got you some things for the little ones," Paul said, looking embarrassed. "I know it's traditional to wait until after they're born, but I thought, well, with everything that's happened, maybe we could use something normal and happy." Danny grinned. "Plus, I wanted to be the cool uncle who gives the best presents." Kara's laugh was deep and genuine, the first real laugh Jake had heard from her in weeks. "You will both be honored as family," she said. "In Draknari culture, those who fight beside you in battle become blood-bonded. You have earned that right." The night the eggs began to hatch, Jake was asleep in a chair next to the incubation chambers. He had insisted on staying there, refusing to go back to his quarters. A soft chiming sound woke him. He opened his eyes to see Dr. Hoffman at the monitoring station, her face alert. "Jake," she said quietly, "it's starting." He was on his feet instantly. Through the transparent walls of the first chamber, he could see movement inside the egg. Fine cracks were spreading across the shell surface, following the natural weak points in the structure. Light leaked through the cracks, warm and golden. Dr. Hoffman contacted Kara immediately. Despite Dr. Park's protests that she should rest, Kara arrived within minutes, moving faster than anyone had expected. She stood beside Jake, her hand finding his, both of them watching with held breath. The first egg broke open completely. What emerged was small, covered in fluid, but moving with surprising strength. Dr. Hoffman carefully removed it from the chamber, placing it on a warming pad while she cleaned it gently. When Jake got his first clear look at his child, he felt tears run down his face. The baby had scales, but they were softer and smaller than Draknari scales. arranged in patterns that resembled human skin texture. The face was a perfect blend of both species, with large eyes that opened to reveal golden irises flecked with brown. Tiny claws flexed at the ends of fingers that had both human and Draknari characteristics. "It's a girl," Dr. Hoffman said softly, placing the baby in Kara's waiting arms. Kara held their daughter with infinite care, her eyes wide with wonder. The baby made a small sound, something between a human cry and a Draknari hatchling's chirp. She looked up at her mother with clear intelligence, already alert and aware. The second egg hatched 20 minutes later. Another girl, this one with darker scales that shimmered with hints of blue and green. Dr. Park handed her to Jake, and he held his daughter close, marveling at how light she was compared to a full Draknari hatchling, but how strong she already seemed compared to a human infant. The third egg took longer. As the cracks spread across its surface, Jake felt worry creep in. But when it finally opened, a boy emerged, larger than his sisters and with scales that were almost iridescent in the light. He let out a loud cry that made everyone in the medical bay smile. "He has your voice," Kara said to Jake, though the sound was far louder than any human baby could manage. They named them that night. Sophie, after Jake's grandmother. Maya, for Kara's favorite Draknari poet. And Lucas, a name they both simply liked. The three children were cleaned, examined, and declared healthy by both Dr. Hoffman and Dr. Park. Their biology was stable, their vital signs strong. Against all odds, they were thriving. News of the successful hatching spread quickly. Messages of congratulations poured in from across the galaxy. Even Elder Matriarch Vera sent a formal blessing from the Draknari homeworld, recognizing the children as true members of both species. The next morning, Jake and Kara brought their children back to their quarters for the first time. The rooms had been modified with special cribs that could regulate temperature for the baby's unique needs. Security was tighter than ever, with Nina personally overseeing the protection detail. As Jake held Lucas and watched Kara caring for Sophie and Maya, he felt overwhelmed by emotion. These three small beings represented something that should have been impossible. They were proof that the walls between species were not as solid as everyone had believed. They were bridges, connections, possibilities. Dr. Park and Dr. Hoffman published their research on the pregnancy and the eggs. The scientific paper became the most downloaded document in galactic history. Other species began studying human genetic adaptability with new interest. Medical centers across the galaxy requested samples and data, hoping to use the knowledge to help their own populations. Within months, 3 more cases of human interspecies reproduction were confirmed on other worlds. A human woman expecting children with her Salathi partner, a human man whose Velan wife was carrying eggs, a human who had married a being from a species no one had thought could reproduce with anything outside their own kind. Human genetic flexibility was changing everything. The Galactic Council formally apologized to Jake and Kara for not protecting them better during the crisis. They established new laws and security protocols for interspecies families. Harmony Point was designated as the first center for interspecies family studies, with Jake and Kara as honorary directors. Ambassador Zara was one of their most frequent visitors during those first few months. She would sit with the children, teaching them Draknari phrases while Jake taught them human words. The babies learned quickly, showing an intelligence that amazed everyone who met them. Paul and Danny became regular fixtures in their lives, true to their promise to be uncles to the children. Paul brought toys from Earth on every visit. Danny started teaching them games, even though they were far too young to play yet. It didn't matter. They were building bonds that would last a lifetime. 6 months after the hatching, the family received an invitation to visit both Earth and the Draknari homeworld. It would be a symbolic journey, introducing the children to both halves of their heritage. Jake and Kara accepted, knowing it would be difficult but important. Before they left, they held a small ceremony in their quarters. It was attended only by their closest friends and allies. Elder Matriarch Vera appeared via hologram to give her blessing. Ambassador Zara spoke about the future these children represented. Paul and Danny were formally recognized as family in both human and Draknari traditions. As the ceremony ended, Jake looked around at the gathering. Humans, Dreknari, and members of other species all together, celebrating something that had once seemed impossible. His children played on a blanket in the center of the room, already showing signs of the unique abilities they would develop. Sophie had her mother's strength and her father's curiosity. Maya had an empathy that seemed to cross species barriers naturally. Lucas had inherited both species' best qualities in equal measure. That night, after everyone had left and the children were asleep, Jake and Kara stood by the window in their quarters. They looked out at the stars together, just as they had on the night they learned about the eggs. "Do you remember when you first told me?" Jake asked. "When you came to my lab and said you were carrying eggs somehow?" Kara's laugh was soft. "I thought you would be more shocked. But you simply accepted it. Like you accept everything." "I married a 7-foot dragon woman from another world," Jake said, smiling. After that, finding out we could have children together seemed almost normal. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Kara said, "Do you think they will have a good life? Our children?" Jake considered the question seriously. "I think they'll face challenges we can't even imagine. People will always see them as different, as symbols of something bigger than themselves, but they'll also have something no one else has. They'll have proof that barriers can be broken, that the impossible can become possible. And they'll have us, and everyone who fought to protect them. They'll have love." In the nursery, one of the children made a small sound. Both parents went immediately to check, but the babies were fine, just shifting in their sleep. Jake watched them, these 3 miracles, and felt a peace he had never known before. The galaxy was changing. The fear and hatred that had driven the consortium still existed in some hearts, but it was being overwhelmed by something stronger. Hope, curiosity, the understanding that diversity made everyone stronger, not weaker. Other species were beginning to form their own interspecies partnerships, inspired by what Jake and Kara had proved possible. The Galactic Council was funding research into genetic compatibility between various species. Barriers that had stood for thousands of years were beginning to fall, all because one human and one Dreknari had fallen in love and refused to let anyone tell them it was wrong. Jake returned to the window where Kara still stood. She reached down, and he took her hand. Together, they looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of countless worlds and endless possibilities. "We did it," Jake said quietly. "We did," Kara agreed. "And we will keep doing it. For them, for all the families that come after us." In the nursery, 3 children slept peacefully, unaware that they had already changed the galaxy simply by existing. They would grow up in a universe that was learning to embrace difference rather than fear it. They would become teachers, leaders, bridges between worlds. But tonight, they were just babies. Just 3 small beings who needed love and care and protection. And they had it. In abundance. From 2 parents who had faced down the impossible and won. The future was uncertain. There would be more challenges, more battles to fight, more walls to break down. But Jake and Kara would face them together, just as they always had. And their children would grow up knowing that anything was possible. That love could cross any divide. And that the word impossible was just a challenge waiting to be overcome. The story of the 7-foot dragon who announced she was carrying her tiny human husband's eggs had ended. But the story of their family and the new galaxy they were helping to create was just beginning.